Yeah, my name is Vlad. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
You actually have your own website, don't you?
I do, yeah. It's www.totalascension.com. It's a solutions-focused coaching practice that I developed and continue to develop with clients all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your reason for taking ayahuasca, coming down here to Peru?
So initially I found out about ayahuasca just over a year ago. It was last year, February. And I was working a job that was just draining me completely to my core. I was unfulfilled, I was overworked, I was tired, I was getting sick all the time. And I knew that something wasn't gonna work.
Yeah.
So when I left that job, after sort of figuring out what I'm gonna do next, ayahuasca sort of just presented herself to me. And I knew instantly, even though it was the first time that I had heard about this medicine, that this is exactly what I needed to do. So coming around this time, now a year later, it was really to go deeper with the medicine. I think after I learned what I did the first time around, and I did about 8 ceremonies in a month, I went out back to the world and put everything into practice, and tried to sort of find my footing with these new realizations and new lessons that I had. And now it's continuing that work.
So you actually came down to do the Dieta, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So when I initially worked with ayahuasca, I heard about these plant diets that people had been doing, and I never quite understood them. And so this time around, after doing some more research, I knew that that's exactly what I needed to do to go even further into the plant medicine world.
Yeah. And did you choose the plant, or did the shaman choose it for you?
So the shaman chose it for me. We did an initial sort of consultation where I just, from start to finish, told them my story. Because I figured, again, if I knew what my problems were exactly, I probably wouldn't be here. I'd be figuring them out and working through them. And then he chose the plant, or it was actually a tree that I did, based on that. Yeah.
What was the name of the tree?
It was called Katawa. Katawa, and you drink the sap of the tree, which is, if you drink too much of it, it's actually poisonous. But with the right amount, it's a really strong medicine.
Great cleanser as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So when you take it sort of 3 days in a row. You'll prepare the first day. You'll actually prepare with a vomitivo, which is sort of like I guess it's kind of like a milk water, and you just drink heaps and heaps and heaps of buckets of warm water. And that induces a purge. And then the next day you ingest the plant for 3 days. And the best way that I can describe that feeling was like getting stomach flu and food poisoning, and getting to a point at the same time, there was hallucinations to sweat, cramping. It was absolutely terrible, to the point where the 3rd day I truly got brought to that point of coming to terms with death. Knowing I wasn't going to, but it was that intense. It was the most intense experience. I just want to make, one of them.
That's why you chose to do this in isolation as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think like the last time I'd come around, it was in a group setting. There was about 25 of us. And I realized that even if you go through a really tough ceremony, or you go through a beautiful one, there's a lot of like the sharing and interaction, and you're telling the story, and the story sort of stops becoming your own and becomes very much a group experience. For me to grow, I knew that I had to push beyond that, because I'm very comfortable in group settings, but on my own, left with my own thoughts, 24, and there's quite a few hours, and never mind hours, seconds in a day that you don't even realize. Like when you have nothing, I would see the ladies who would bring me my food, and then I would see people in passing if I went to the bathroom or to shower, and other than that, it was me with myself. And that experience was unbelievable. To sit, I did just under 3 full weeks in isolation. And the lessons that came through, it was like from the minute you woke up, they started, and then when you went to bed, you started learning lessons in your dreams. So there was no stopping the learning the entire time.
You so the first time you didn't do a Dieta, did you?
No,
I
didn't.
The second time you did. So what were the benefits?
So the benefit, and when people explained sort of what a Dieta was to me, when they said, you're going to work with a plant, that plant is the spirit of the plant is going to come through you, it's going to then become your guide through life, and you're going to see everything will be different, and that lessons will come in dreams. Honestly, I'm one of those people that's like, okay, like I'll try it, but it didn't make any sense. But now having done it, they were 100% accurate. It's like you can feel the same way that ayahuasca has a spirit. Every plant that they work with, all of these master plants or the plants you diet that the shamans work with, they do have an energy, they do have a spirit, and then taking that spirit into you and then figuring out stuff with the help of the plant was just, I don't think I would ever come back and not do a diet. Ever.
Yeah, so people, when they do ayahuasca, they only think of the chacruna and the ayahuasca together, and they work with that. But when you come down here, you realize there are other options like the Dieta. So when you take the Dieta and work with either a tree or a plant, they sort of correspond and sort of enhance each other, don't they?
150%. So after I think it was about 7 or 10 days after the last time I took the sap of the tree, I had my first ceremony during my diet. And I had done at that point about 12 ceremonies just ayahuasca, not on diet. And the first one, and continuing through, even now that I've closed my diet, my ceremonies are completely different. So you can feel not only ayahuasca working, but ayahuasca it almost enhances the spirit of the plant that's within you, and then that guides your ceremonies at that point. They were a lot more intense at certain points, and then really just connected me to plant world and had me figure out any of the things that I came to work on through the plant. So it was amazing. It was truly amazing.
So when you actually did this Dieta, was you taking ayahuasca 4 times a week still, or less?
No, I was taking ayahuasca. So when I initially got here, I did 3 ceremonies in a row. Then I did on the next night my vomitivo. The next night I started my my plant diet, and then about 10 days after it was a ceremony, and then I did another ceremony again. So I only did two or 3 ceremonies. I believe it was 2 while I was on the diet before closing it.
So that's the intriguing thing, because people only assume you get your messages through the visions and through ayahuasca, but you actually got the large sum of your information just through dreams and through daily routine, wasn't it?
That's it. And it just being, and I know that like for people who haven't dieted, that's going to be, because it was very hard for me at least to understand when people would say that to me, or when people would say, you know, when I sit in ceremony and I don't drink, I still have a ceremony, which is what happened to me as well. After I closed my diet, the lessons that came through, ayahuasca is one thing. It's very intense, it's very visual, it can be pleasurable, yes, and it's just very like, it hammers it into you. But when you're left with self, true self, and I ended my diet with a 3-day water fast only, because I wanted to get rid of the food and rid of the mapacho that we smoke here, because it was controlling my emotions, right? So once I isolated truly me and just myself, I can't say that I've ever had, every second of my time in isolation was a ceremony. And it was just super profound to be fully alert, fully conscious, and to be learning all of this. It was, I've never experienced truly anything like it in this world.
Yeah, because you was actually going to come here for longer, wasn't you? But because you got so many messages to apply to your life, you decided there was no need.
Exactly. I was going to come initially for 6 months, and not knowing what I know about doing an isolation and doing a diet, it made sense that I would need that amount of time to sort of, I had a list of, I think, about 25 things I wanted to work on, and I was not going to leave until I sort of resolved them. And it was about right at the beginning of week 3 where I started to realize, I checked back to that list, and it was like marked off completely. And that's just the thing, and I know I keep saying it, but there are when you're just by yourself, no phone, I took away in my room, I had like pictures, books, everything, I took it all away. So I would sit basically in my hammock or on my porch or on my bed and just go through like a download that I didn't need the 6 months at all.
How did the plants sort of give this information to you?
So it was mostly the dreams were it was insane. It was like I'd have about 3 or 4 separate dreams a night, and I'd wake up from them, and then I'd just jot down like all this information. So that a lot of it came through that, but the good chunk of it came from just sitting there and like letting your mind go. And not trying to do the meditation practices that I do at home, which is, you know, center yourself, don't think of anything, do a body scan, or just be. No, it's letting whatever comes come. And a lot of it came through just emotions and dealing with yourself. How do you deal with yourself when there's nobody around to even smile at you? And I never realized like how much a smile from another person can enhance your day or can change it. So when it's just you, what do you think about? What are your issues? How do you deal with them? How do you deal with being hungry, angry, lonely, tired? How do you deal with it? And to be honest, in the Western world, or like in my life at least, I can constantly be surrounded by people. So I don't really need to focus on myself all the time, full time. But here you do. So you really, really get to know yourself, or at least I did, in the most personal, intimate, and sometimes like shocking way. Like you learn that you have these emotions and how they can come out, and then you work with them, and then the plant sort of will help you guide and be like, okay, do you want, you know, to let the fact that it's humid and hot outside ruin the next 3 days of your life? Are you gonna suffer? Are you gonna choose to suffer or not? And then that would lead to something like, you know, how many times in my life have I chosen to suffer when I truly can't control anything? It's beautiful. So lessons like that, that's how it would go about.
So your thoughts on ayahuasca, like to you, what is ayahuasca? Because some people just look at ayahuasca as like one of the most intense psychedelic drugs that there are. They want to come to a place like this, they just want to get crazy visions and be out of their mind. Some people look at it as a healing, a medicine, like a psychiatrist for a plant that talks to people. What's your view on it?
So anybody who has not tried it and who thinks this is a drug and thinks that this is a fun experience, I welcome them to come and try it. It's not. I would never in my life sit at home on a Saturday and say, you know what, like tonight I feel like purging and, you know, going through some really intense stuff. Who wants to come along for the ride? No, this is the most intense, or not the most. This is a medicine first and foremost, and I truly believe that what ayahuasca is a facilitator of God, of higher power, of the universe. Having a teacher, and so a teacher that is a medicine that has that capability is something I could have never imagined, regardless of the documentaries that I watched, the research that I did, the videos I watched. Until you experience it, I don't think you can fully understand the capacity of what this medicine does, or what it's capable of doing for you and for really anybody who takes it. I've never met anybody who's taken it and said, who's thought, one, that it was a drug afterwards, because it would be the worst drug in the world, to be honest, and two, who didn't see the medicinal benefits of taking it.
And at the start of that, you mentioned the purge. Would you say that's a put-off? No,
I think that the purge is, I mean, I try to come from a place of gratitude when I'm purging. It's really, really hard because my purges are incredibly intense, but it's almost, the best way I see it is that purge is almost a rite of passage into the world of ayahuasca. If you think that there's you know, different spiritual dimensions that exist around us at all times, to open yourself up to them, at least this is how I understand it, my human body can't shift into that without some kind of a reaction. And to be honest, every time I've purged, I have felt so incredible after. And there's been moments where I was purging out, I could feel the energies that were coming out of me, and who wouldn't want to get rid of that? Like, no, is it pleasurable to be vomiting and sounding like there's something like seriously wrong in that moment? Not really, but you don't care. You're just getting it out, and you're so happy when it's done that it's worth it. I think the point leading up to it is my problem, because when I start to get like really nauseous, really dizzy, and I know what's coming, it's like the anticipation of is much worse than the actual purge.
So that's funny that you mentioned that, actually, because when the Ikaros, when the shamans are channeling the Ikaros, basically as soon as they start, you hear a purge.
Yeah, yeah.
So there'll be silence for about 30 minutes, and as soon as they start, you'll just hear a purge. And for me, some of my experiences, I've had nothing. I'm able to close my eyes, have no visions, have no body sensations, but as soon as I purge, all of a sudden it's like a door's opened and the visions start coming, the emotions start coming, the sensations start coming, and like you said, it's like a rite of passage. So the purge, at least for me and Vlad and many people, it's necessary. It's the gateway to actually get through. But yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Cheers, man.